Hello, everyone. My name is Gabe Gurman. I am the COO and co-founder of CareerPlace, and welcome to our September CareerPlace webinar. During this webinar, if you have any questions, if you go to the Zoom control and you look, you'll see a Q&A icon. Click on it. A little window will pop up, and just post your questions over there. We'll be checking it out later on when we get to the Q&A section of our webinar. And today, we have the pleasure of having our principal research scientist, Matt Borneman, who is going to walk you through a very critical step of the hiring process, and that's job profiling. But first, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to CareerPlace. Take a look at these pictures. Based on these pictures, can you tell who is the CEO, who's the accountant, who's the teacher? You see, our biases affect our perception, impacting who we hire. And by the way, if you're looking at the person who doesn't look like the teacher and you want to say that's a teacher, well, that's bias too. Now tell me, who is the CEO? Who is the accountant? Who is the teacher? To remove our biases from the hiring process, we must remove what triggers those biases. And that's identities. You see, and that's exactly what we have done at CareerPlace. In most solutions out there today, we always start with the resume, full of biasing information, where the candidates are known and evaluated by telling their story, in a process that's often inconsistent, with each candidate being asked different questions, often from the same interviewer. At CareerPlace, we do it differently. We start with the job, not the resume, defining what is required for a successful hire. Without beginning with the resume, we can keep the candidates totally anonymous, removing all those biasing triggers. Pivoting evaluation from telling the story of the resume to allowing the candidates to show what they are capable of, all in a process that is consistent, so every candidate is evaluated the same way by the same standards. The CareerPlace evaluation process acts as a funnel, replacing the long hours of resume sifting and follow-up phone screens with an efficient process that results in candidates who are highly qualified to your standards, saving you time and money. And we do this with a simple three-step process. We start with the qualify phase. All candidates who are applying for this position will go through this automated stage. This is where we want to find out that, make sure that the candidates meet all the needs and requirements of the hiring organization, including things like, are you willing to work in the city? Are you capable of travel? Do you have these skills? If they have all of those, we end this stage with a psychometric or a soft skills assessment that will test on the soft skills that are really critical for the occupation you're hiring for. When candidates pass those or have those requirements, they go on to the next stage, the demonstrate stage. And this is really where the candidate can shine and show off what they're capable of doing. This is a stage where the candidate will be faced with scenarios or questions that come from the hiring team around things that are very relevant to the job. For example, if you're hiring a financial auditor, you may include a financial sheet and have the candidate come up with as many observations as they can. Or if you're hiring a customer service person, give them a scenario that they have an angry customer on the phone. See how they'd react to that. For the candidates who pass this stage, they go on to the final stage, which is around culture and fit. This is where we make use of some video technology, where the candidate can answer questions such as, tell me your greatest accomplishment and why. For the candidates who pass this last stage, they are then taken to what we call the reveal stage. At this point, this is the list of the highly qualified candidates, and it's only at this point that the hiring team can then reveal who the candidate is. You can see their name, their contact information, their resume, social media links as well. So you have the confidence that the candidates you bring in objectively meet your qualifications. So you hire the best candidates for your job. But how can you be sure your process is resulting in the best candidates? It all comes down to identifying the right job qualifications. And for that, I'd like to introduce you to our principal research scientist and psychometrician, Matt Borneman. Take it away, Matt.
Thanks, Gabe. I'm here today to talk about the job profiling process. Job profiling is breaking down the job into components that distinguish the top performers from those who aren't qualified. This generally proceeds along three stages. The first stage is identifying the minimum qualifications for the position that you have to have coming into the job. The second stage is defining the required traits and characteristics that distinguish the top performers from those who won't perform as well. Third is figuring out how to measure those skills that are necessary through work samples, situational interviews, and similar things. Today, we're going to be talking about identifying the minimum qualifications. We'll leave the other topics for future webinars. Today, I'm going to be talking about what are the right questions to ask, why they are the right questions, and then go through some examples of some problematic job requirements in live jobs. So to ask the right questions, once you've come up with that list of things that may be minimum qualifications, you need to ask yourself a series of questions. Some of these questions might be, is it needed on day one? Is it required for successful job performance? Must all employees who work in your organization have this? If you answer yes to any of those, that would be a minimum qualification. On the other hand, if you're asking questions like, is this just a nice to have? Will I train it once they're on the job? Can the candidate learn it? If you answer yes to those sorts of questions, then no, it's not a minimum qualification. And of course, the most important question you need to ask is why? Why is that a minimum qualification? Why do you have to have that working for our organization? If you can't answer that question, then it's not a real requirement. So why ask why? It's not to try but dry. It's to get you qualified candidates that actually meet all of your requirements. It will also help you provide a positive candidate experience because candidates want to go through a selection process that's actually related to what they have to do on the job. And finally, it helps you with compliance. Now, compliance is a whole other topic, and I like to refer you to our principal compliance analyst, Alex Desmond, who's got some great content on our blog regarding compliance. Now I want to transition into some examples. This first example is from a sous chef position. This is live on Indeed right now. One of the requirements they list is that you must be able to lift pots and pans and other containers weighing up to 50 pounds. Let's go back to our key question. Why? Why do you have to lift those pots and pans weighing up to 50 pounds? Are you completely unable to ask for help? If someone's available to help you on the job, then that's not a requirement. You don't have to meet that. Next up, we have another example of a problematic requirement, this time with a software engineer. This is an educational requirement where a bachelor's degree in computer science or a related field is required. Again, why? Why is that required? Are you really not going to hire that hotshot programmer who's self-taught and doesn't have a degree, but can probably program circles around most developers out there? Are you really going to refuse to hire Bill Gates because he doesn't have that bachelor's degree? Instead, think about the skills and experience that you get through that degree program and focus on those instead. Next up, speaking of experience, we have a job from a full stack web developer. One of the requirements that's listed is experience with a front-end JavaScript framework. How much experience? I'm in HR and I have experience with a front-end JavaScript framework. I took about an hour class to solve a problem I was having. So I have experience with that, but I would be a terrible full stack web developer. Instead, you should focus on the proficiency level that you need with that job. Here, as we have it set up, you have to be an expert in JavaScript. Now, I'm not an expert in JavaScript, so I would get screened out of this process, and rightfully so. In fact, bonus points if you actually assess whether they have that proficiency level or not. Which leads me to our next example. Here we have an accounting assistant position. In this job ad, they have a whole host of knowledge elements that you have to know coming into the job. For example, one of them is reconcile Schedule 13 license and title fees. Again, I'm in HR, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to evaluate that. I don't know how to assess that in a screening interview. Instead, What I can do is I can build a test or quiz around that. I can work with subject matter experts to develop that quiz to actually assess whether the candidates coming in have that required knowledge. Now, how to build a quiz is a topic for another day because Gabe won't let me talk for another 4 hours on this. So today we talked about job profiling and identifying the minimum qualifications. There's a lot to it and it can get pretty complicated, but I can help you break it down, and I would love to talk more about this with you. So for right now, let's move into questions.
Great, thank you, Matt. So if you have any questions, please look for that Q&A panel and type in those questions. I do see one question already on there. If you have any questions, please add them in there. Matt, this will be for you. Okay. Most of our jobs require candidates to have proficient communication skills. How can career.place help?
Yeah, that is a very common requirement, and that's a great one that's definitely needed for the organization. It's very easy to answer the why question of why that's critical to the job, but it's something that's difficult to assess without human intervention. So what I generally advise people to do is to embed the assessment of communication skills in other questions you're asking. For example, if you're asking a homework question where people respond in writing, or an interview question where people respond verbally, you can evaluate the content of what they say, but you could also evaluate the communication skills of how they say it. So you can do both with questions like that later on in this selection process.
Great, thank you very much. And I don't see any other questions. So with that, I'm going to take over this webinar at this point. And by the way, Matt, I'm glad you didn't go into knowledge quiz because yeah, I know you could spend 4 hours talking about that. So what I'm going to do now is switch views over here and give you guys a quick demonstration of career.place. And here it is. Welcome to career.place, guys. This is our corporate dashboard. I'm logged in as a hiring manager right now, where you could see several jobs that I have posted and such. What I'd like to walk you through is very much related to what Matt was talking about, was how do you set up a job with requirements? So I'm going to start the job creation process over here. And I simply type in the title of the job I'm looking to create. In this case, let's say it's a software developer. I'll click on Software Developer Applications, and here's a screen to verify that I've selected the right occupation to start this job on. And I'll click Start Job Post right here. And you can see this, there are multiple tabs over here. The first tab we call the job profile is where you set up all the basics requirements for the job. And when I say requirements, I mean what you usually think of in terms of requirements or responsibilities. We pre-fill a lot of this information in. We get a lot of our data from the Department of Labor. You are more than welcome to go into here and replace this text or modify it as needed. The next thing I want to show you is that whole qualify stage, which is, if you remember the funnel, this is the first stage of the funnel, and it's also a lot of what Matt talked about. So you see these different tiles in place over here. Based on what I need specified or what the needs and requirements are for the job, I can specify them. Let me start with the requirements piece over here. And you can see my organization already has 2 default requirements. Everyone must be authorized to work in the US and accept a background check. I can definitely add any other ones. For example, people have to accept a credit check to be done on them, or I can add a custom one as well. And I'll save that. And then I'll go on to education and certifications. If I have those, I can add them. Where the job is located to make sure candidates are willing to work at that location, or if it's telecommute. Travel is another common one, and for this job I'm setting up over here, I want to set the job to 25%. I want to set expectations with the candidates early on to make sure that they are willing to travel 25% of the time. If there are language requirements, I'd put them in. Compensation as well is a great thing to check. When this is enabled, we will ask the candidates what's the minimum they're looking for this type of position. And as long as they're within the negotiation range, we'll allow them through. And we also have hard skills here, to some of the points that Matt was bringing up. Only those hard skills which are really required, and you ask yourself why, should be added over here. So let's say over here in this job, Excel is going to, if I could spell, Excel is going to be a hard skill that will be required at an intermediary level. And I won't go through a whole example of right this over here right now, but this is our knowledge quiz. We could ask different types of questions, multiple choice questions, or it could be multi-select. And this is where you could test the knowledge of candidates going through this initial qualify stage. And then when you're done setting these up, you would simply post job. Confirm you want to post it. Specify which job boards that we currently integrate with, or you can have other job boards where this job can be. Hit save, and the job is out there. And now we have this job posted looking for software developers. Now what I'd like to do is show you the flip side for a job that has been posted and show you the candidate experience. So here I have a window set up for a candidate looking at a job for a financial auditor. And here's the basic job, the job posting itself, showing the location and other key information as was typed on that job profile. The candidate would simply click Apply Now, and they would go through the career.place process for the candidate. And over here, you'll see a introduction screen to tell the candidate what to expect for this job and what parts they're going to have to be concerned about, with a little video the candidate can see to show them what this process is like. They would click Get Started and start questionnaire. And you see that from that requirements or that qualify stage, we will ask the candidates these questions one at a time. They will have to answer these in the affirmative to pass through. So this job has 4 requirements. It has a language requirement as well. And here you can see the travel requirements and so forth. And once they pass this phase, they will go to the next stage that's configured, whether it be the homework stage or that demonstrate stage or that culture fit stage, to then determine if they make it to the short list for this position. So with that, I end the demo. And I would like to also now at this point turn over to Q&A. If you have any other questions in Q&A, let me take a quick look over here. And I don't see any additional questions. So with that, I could let you guys go. Thank you so much for attending the September webinar. And thank you, Matt Borneman, for your talk on job profiling. Stay tuned for, check us out on social media. You'll see a post of this webinar, the recording of this webinar, and look out for our webinar coming up for the first week of October. Thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.